Doesn't really matter too much, but we just standardly do it out after headers. Okay, so now that that's happened, we'll go ahead and register another user. Let's say Mike at phpacademy.org. And we'll say Mike, and we'll type in a password. We'll click register. That relocates us to the index page. Now technically we're actually logged in now, we just haven't created any checks that actually show that we're logged in or not. So what we can now do is modify this login form and get rid of this if we've logged the user in. So although we haven't got the login form actually working yet, we can substitute this with a greeting to our user. Now eventually we're going to be creating the user data function, which is going to return some data for us, but for now we can just place a little message in there anyway. So let's go ahead and open up our widgets folder, and we open up login.php. Now around this we can actually put some PHP code, and we can check if the user's logged in. However, we need to actually create the logged in function, and this is just simply going to return isSet $_session user ID, and this will return a value based on whether this function or whether this session is set or not. So we can actually use this to check if our user's logged in. Now you could just use isSet instead of using this logged in function. However, for me personally, I like using the logged in function because it's really easy to write. We can just write if logged in. So let's go over to login.php, and we can now say if logged_in echo hello, else, and we start the block here. However, we keep the ended code, the ended PHP tag here, and then we come down after this and we end the block there. So we've used HTML code inside a PHP block, and we'll just indent that like that. So now if we've logged in, which we are because we logged the user in once they registered, they'll be greeted with this message here. Otherwise they will be greeted with the form. So let's go ahead and refresh the page, and you can see that that's changed to hello. So we're already starting to bring together this this register and login system for our site, and actually determine whether the user's logged in or not. The other thing we need to change is the menu, because the user, once they've logged in, doesn't need the register button at all. So we can go ahead and change that as well. So let's go ahead and open menu.php, and down here we can create a similar check, and we can just say if logged in, do something, and this is going to be things like, in fact we can say if not logged in. We can end that there, start that again there, and we can put that in there. So if the user is not logged in, we display the register, and then here we can say else, and we could perhaps display some other menu items, and that will be things like log out and create album, things like that. So let's go ahead and create a logout link, and that will be linking to logout.php. Let's just go ahead and tidy this up slightly, so we could probably pull that down there and that down there. So hopefully you understand, if the user's not logged in, we want to show the register link. Otherwise we want to show things like logout and the rest of the fields which will come down here, or the links, sorry, that will come down here. So let's go ahead now and refresh the page and see the change that we've made. You can now see that that's changed to logout, and we've got rid of register. So we've included the appropriate check that once the user's logged in, we no longer need to actually allow them to register. However, we give them the option to log out. Now the other problem we have is that once the user's registered, they could then return to the registration form, and we don't want to allow them to do this. For example, if we go to register.php, they can just go ahead and register again despite the fact they're already logged in. So we need to go ahead and include a check here that will forward them to index.php, or relocate them to index.php if they're already logged in. Let's go over to register.php and go all the way to the top, and we can add this, let's say, in between init and header. Okay, so we need init because we need to make use of sessions and things like that, and our functions that we're using. However, we can do this before output of any HTML. So I can say if logged in, then header location index.php, and then we exit. And the reason we exit is because if the user was to be using a browser that ignores header requests, then they can continue on with the page. Exit will kill the page if the user's logged in, if this header function fails for any reason. So now we can see that we're on the let's just change that and go back. Well, we can just go back to register.php now. So if we go ahead and go back to register.php, you can see that we're just automatically relocated back to index.php. So just tidying things up and making sure users can't go ahead and register if they're logged in, things that we wouldn't normally want people to do whilst using our site. So let's go ahead and create and run the log out page, and then in the next part of the tutorial we'll be looking at actually logging the user in. So let's go ahead to our text editor, and we want to create a new page. So this new page here will be called log out. We don't want it in widgets, we want it in the root directory. It will be called logout.php. So save that out. The first thing we want to do is start our session. Now the reason we're not including our init.php file, which has session start in, is because it also includes all of our functions, and we don't actually need them to log the user out. Therefore we can just type session start on its own. We then type session destroy, which would kill all sessions relating that we've set in this session, and then we can relocate the user to the index page. So location index.php. There's no real need to do exit, but I always like to do it anyway. Okay, so let's go ahead and log ourselves out. We can click log out now, and you can see that that's now actually logged us out. Now I did lie, there is one more thing we need to do, and that's change this image depending on whether the user's logged in or not. So in fact, no, we'll do that in the next part of the tutorial, because we're going to be dealing with the user being logged in, and we'll touch a few things up, and then we're going to go ahead and start on the user data function as well, which is going to grab specific data that we need from the user's field, or the user table, and from the specific field. So that's how to have your users register. We automatically log them in. In the next part we're going to be looking at actually allowing them to manually log in themselves when they return back to the website.